This particular letter was written to the Honourable Chris Alexander, the Minister of Immigration, Citizenship and Immigration Canada, and it's in regard to the deportation of Jose Figueroa. It says, "Dear Minister Alexander, on behalf of the 1,500 members of the Langley Teachers Association, we urge that you act to stop the deportation of Jose Figueroa, a resident of Langley, BC, and give him legal immigrant status in Canada. Mr. Figueroa has spent 15 years in Canada to date and has a family of 3 children born in Canada. He has demonstrated a positive record as a resident of Canada. This is also recognized by the many people who have spoken out in support of Mr. Figueroa being granted legal permanent residence in Canada." It would take an increase of $609 million annually to BC's education system to bring BC in line with the Canadian average spending on K-12 education. The Coalition of Childcare Advocates of BC estimate that it would cost $1.5 billion annually to fully implement the early care and learning system for children under the age of 6. We could also restore funding to Community Living BC, the $20 million that was removed, to reopen closed, specialized care homes to foster independent living for physically and mentally challenged adults. Have you ever seen a friend hurt because of discrimination? I think we all can think of someone that has been. And have you ever been hurt yourself? Discrimination comes in many forms, including racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, ageism, and anti-Semitism, just to name a few. These social diseases create barriers: bullying, harassment, hate, and violence. And no one should have to experience the negativity created by discrimination. Day of Pink is more than just a symbol. It's a shared belief in celebrating diversity. It's also a commitment to being open-minded, accepting differences, and learning to respect one another. We want to work with you. We believe there's a need to create the policy, but we're long past the point of discussing whether or not a policy is required. And so therefore, I'd like to say to you that as a partner in this issue, we have already held public meetings. We would like to work with you to continue to hold public meetings. We would like to be able to address a motion to our members to work with you within the schools
But please let that work be about creating the policy and not discussing whether or not there is a need to have one.
So when I speak to you as president of the Teachers Association, feel that and know that the union has worked hard on your behalf because you all deserve it. And we hope that during all of that time that you've been here, you felt well supported by the union at both the local and the provincial level. There are often times in people's lives when things are not going as well as they'd like them to go, and sometimes on occasion when things are really taking a bad turn. One of the things that I've learned coming into this job as president of the Teachers Association is that I get to share lots of joys and pleasures and happy times, and I also get to share some times that are really stressful and trying times in people's lives. And those are the occasions when I really value myself, everything that the union has to offer its membership. And I'm hoping that if you've not had to take advantage of any of those services, if you have a friend or a loved one that has, that you see the value in belonging to an association that has always got your back and is always there for you. And I, as your local president, and all of our executive know that we also have that from you.
Was for us to sign off and say that if we get a deal we like from the Supreme Court of BC Appeals or the Supreme Court of Canada, that we're prepared to sign a contract that would allow them to give us 60 days notice to come in and rip up our contract again. Shame, shame, shame. And they really, I find it a bit offensive. They must really think we did get our degrees off a cardboard box, mail in with your Kellogg's cornflakes. Because we're not signing that says if we win in the Supreme Court, we give you 60 days notice to come in and rip up our contract.
E80 is government's proposal that would take from us our previous Supreme Court wins. It would also take from us the potential to implement any subsequent or future court wins. If we abide by E80 as the government has proposed it, then what they currently have for our Learning Improvement Fund would become part of our contract. They would then be able to cap the amount, and they would then be able to control the process. It would also take away any further conversation about class composition and class size.
We are dealing with a board in Langley, although generally we have gotten along quite well with these trustees. I have to say that this is not a board that has ever presented a needs-based budget to the ministry, that has ever sent an appeal to the ministry saying that the underfunding is affecting the classrooms in a negative way, or that they feel that they should be looking at the actual cost instead of downloading additional increase such as MSP premiums. They have never stood up to this government and said, one, here's our needs-based budget as opposed to our balanced, or this is what we think you should be doing to actually meet our actual costs. And so if they're not going to be standing up for students and children in the classroom, then when they make a decision to reward themselves, the optics are very bad.
things that are intended to take effect immediately. One of them, for instance, being the 10 minutes per week added on to prep time for elementary teachers. If we don't ratify, that doesn't happen. In addition, until we ratify all of the articles that we signed off locally, which are huge improvements for us in many other different ways, we cannot have that language put into our collective agreement until the provincial agreement is ratified. So there's a whole host of domino effects that take place, and comes from our inability to access services for the students or the clients that we're there to serve. And in the teaching profession, particularly those who work with students with special needs or high-risk students, we are clearly aware that we have very few resources for which we can access, for those students. So this is a great motion, and I want to say that motions are not empty avenues or empty resources. We've taken some motions, we've written some letters, and they have produced hard results, firm committees, and actual resources that we're now able to refer our students and staff to in the community. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. I appreciate it.